Well, hello and welcome. This is Greek session number 4, introducing the present active indicative. In this lesson, we're going to introduce the idea of tense, voice, mood, person, and number, 5 very important characteristics that we find going on in verbs in Greek. And we'll also meet a set of suffixes that we call primary active endings. I always want to invite people to participate in my full courses at potterschool.org, or for adults especially at alts.edu, and you're always welcome to visit wittenbergcomo.com. All right, what happens with Greek verbs? There are 5 critical characteristics that you do need to know about Greek verbs. And what we'll do is we'll introduce those and we'll see very briefly how to recognize just one of them today. Those critical characteristics are tense, voice, mood, person, and number. So let's jump right in and identify tense. Tense comes from the Latin word tempus, meaning time of action. And in Greek, what we want to be aware of, as in any language, we pay attention to the tense, and tense only refers to time. It doesn't refer to anything else, only time. In Greek, the different tenses maybe have another small feature. Some people will make it a very large feature, but for now we won't worry about it in the least. And what we'll find out is that in Greek, immediately what we're meeting is the present tense. The present tense is for action right now. Consider it as action which is happening or does happen. If we use a helping verb in English, for the Greek we'll use am, are, is, do, or does to show the present tense. Now in Greek we're not going to use a helping verb, but we'll see how to deal with that in a moment. There are, as you might notice from this list, there are 6 different tenses that show up in Greek. Some of them kind of exist in English. We have a present tense for action happening right now. We have a future tense for action that hasn't happened yet. There are several past tenses. There's an imperfect tense for action that was happening. It's not completed action necessarily. It's ongoing in the past. We have an aorist tense, which indicates action usually in the past at just one point. It's a point of action. So, for instance, the present tense normally is linear action. The imperfect tense is linear action, but the aorist tense is a point of action, normally in the past. Here's the perfect tense that we meet, and that indicates action in the past with a continuing result. And then the pluperfect tense indicates action before some time in the past. So maybe we'll illustrate it that way. Now you notice I left the future blank. It could be a point of action. Oops. It could be, let's draw the ellipse tool, could be a point of action, or it could indicate linear action. But in general, present tense, action happening right now, that's what we want to observe for now. Let's go from tense to voice. What is the voice all about? In English, we have this idea of voice as well. It's usually kind of difficult to indicate what is what with voices. In voice, what we're noticing is a relationship, and that is the relationship between the subject of a sentence and the action. In English we have two voices, the active and the passive. In the active voice, the subject does the action of the verb. So, for instance, although this hurts a little bit, the dog bites me. The dog is the subject, and the dog is the one doing the action. I'm the one receiving the action. It's an active voice sentence. The dog bites me. The passive voice, on the other hand, in Greek, just as it is in English, the subject receives the action. So I am bitten by the dog. I am the subject, but I'm not doing the action, the biting. I'm receiving it, and so it's in the passive voice. Greek also has the middle voice, where the subject does the action, but it's usually for some sort of a personal, maybe slightly reflexive reason. Common in the South, in the United States, somebody might use the pronoun me. For instance, in the sentence, I'm going to buy me some lunch. If I say that, that indicates that I'm doing the buying, but I'm doing it for myself. I'm not doing it for you. If you want lunch, you'll have to get your own. But I'm doing it normally. We can actually spell normally, by the way. Normally for a kind of a personal reason of some sort. So I would buy me some lunch. Anyway, the active and passive are by far the most common in the Greek New Testament. And right now we're working with the present tense, the active voice, and now we meet mood. Mood is really kind of difficult to identify, or rather, really difficult to describe. Mood, grammatically, is what I might call the reality index of the action. For instance, the indicative mood, what we're studying now, indicates real action. I meant that to be the highlighter. All right, the indicative mood indicates real action. So the dog bites me, it is raining, John rides a bicycle. You see, the indicative mood indicates real action. Other moods, and there are several of them in Greek, there's a little bit of debate about how many there are, but other moods indicate action that's not as real. Maybe a subjunctive mood, John might fall off his bicycle. The dog could bite me. I might buy lunch. You see, that would be not indicating real action. The imperative that makes a command is describing something that's not real yet. Put down the gun. That indicates, that you are still holding the gun. Doesn't indicate your real action, does it? So other moods don't indicate real action, but the indicative mood does. And right now what we're seeing is the present active indicative. Two other characteristics of verbs in the indicative mood are person and number, and those really we have to think about together. The person indicates who's doing the action, and the number indicates how many people or things are doing the action. And whenever we make a chart, we always arrange it this way. We have singular on the left and plural on the right. And we have the first person, then the second person, and then the third person. First person singular would be I, but plural would be we. Second person singular is you, and the plural is also. Some parts of the country will do something special with a plural you, such as yous or youans or you all. But it's still you. Third person singular could be he, she, or it. And A plural, if we have a bunch of he's, she's, or its, those people would be they. Well, so what we have in this lesson, we've met the idea of the present tense, the active voice, the indicative mood, and we see first, second, and third person, singular and plural. Now in English we indicate those by using some pronouns or helping verbs. We use all sorts of extra helping words. What do we do in Greek? We have this thing that we will call the verb stem, and that's the lu part of it. All right, there's the stem, and the stem doesn't change from person to person or number to number. The suffix, though, indicates who's doing the loosing. Forgot to change my tool again. All right. Confucius say, he who thinks quickly on feet often steps on people's toes. What we use are these suffixes, which we will call the primary active endings, to indicate the person and number of a present active indicative verb. So, o, ace, a, amen, ete, usi wants to go into your logbook, and also luo, I loose, lues, you loose, lue, he, she, or it looses, luamen, we loose, luete, you plural loose, luusi, they loose. So the green highlights are the primary active endings. We always want to be able to identify a verb by tense, voice, mood, person, number, and meaning. So be aware of that as you work with verbs. One last note, notice the accent here. Verb accents in Greek stay as far from the end of a word as possible. Here's what they did. You can't have an accent on the third syllable from the end if the last syllable is long. And in the singular, all those last syllables are long, so the accent is on the second syllable from the end. In the plural, all those last syllables are short, the accent is able to retreat to the third syllable from the end. All right, tense, voice, mood, person, number, I think you can do it. So long.